Good evening, parents and community members of the Hollister School District. My name is Diego Ochoa. I am superintendent of the Hollister School District. I'm delighted to be here with you all tonight. For those of you who prefer to participate in this meeting in Spanish, please feel free to see now as the time to go ahead and log into the online version, which is the Spanish link. We do have a translator that's there now. So I hope you're able to click on the appropriate link to get into that meeting. Tonight's meeting is a very important meeting because it's an important update to parents about our local control accountability plan process. And those of you that participate during this meeting, and many of you who have sent me emails about the LCAP process and given me feedback about the LCAP process, I'm excited to be able to have this conversation with you all because it's the beginning, it's the beginning stages of us creating a plan going into the 21-22 school year, and then taking each of the next 2 school years after that and just wrapping that in to a 3-year plan for the Hollister School District. So I've got some important updates for you all. First and foremost, we have sent out a new and awesome survey to parents in the Hollister School District. I'm going to show you the results of that survey. Second, we have sent out messages about meetings to our employees, and I have some feedback for you to look at that came directly from meetings we held last week on Friday with our classified school employees, as well as some initial teacher feedback that will be much more updated at the end of the next couple of weeks. But it does take a little bit longer to get feedback from all of our teachers because we do have, as you know, 10 schools in the Hollister School District. So what we're going to start off with tonight is we're going to start off with a very clean and very clear explanation of what the district's 4 goals in the LCAP are expected to be moving into the next 3 years. So the first LCAP goal that we'll prioritize for our 21 through 24 LCAP is we will identify student achievement for all students as one of the district's goals going into next year. And basically what that means to parents and community members watching this event is we want kids to read more effectively. We want kids to do math more effectively. We want kids to improve in their writing. We want more middle school students to earn solid grades and do well in English, math, science, and history. And we want every child in this district, whether they're at Sarah Vista Elementary School or Sunny Slope Elementary School or at either one of our 2 middle schools or any school in this district, we want every single child to have that same fair, equitable opportunity to achieve and to improve in their academics every year. So that's the first goal. The easy way to put it is student achievement. That's our first goal. Our second goal as a district is social, emotional supports and learning for students. So let me tell you what I mean by that. There has rarely been a year in my career of 22 years in education where the emotional needs of our students have been more present, have been more significant, have been more challenging to address than this school year. I think we all know having kids work remotely from home has been difficult for many, many students. And not physically being on our campuses has made it harder for us to know what issues kids are going through at home. So in some cases, kids had emotional issues that have taken place for months, but we're just now learning about them now that the kids are coming back to campus. So one of the district's goals is the social, emotional supports and learning for all students. That's goal number 2. So that basically takes us to goal number 3. Goal number 3 is a new goal for us as a district, a district-wide goal, and that goal is equity for all students, and specifically working to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline. So let me explain what I mean by equity for all students. What that entails is that every single opportunity is equal for every single student. So that if we have kids that are going to school at Lad Lane, they have the same opportunity as my students that go to school at R.O. Hardin, and the same opportunity that we have at Calaveras and every school in this district, regardless of how much money your parents make, regardless of how many degrees your parents have, regardless of your skin color, regardless any factor, you have an equal and fair opportunity to learn and to achieve in our district. So that's a very important goal. It's very, very closely tied to a lot of the district's passion and the movement that we're making towards improving education in the Hollister School District. And then our last goal is simple as well: the active engagement of parents and students in our educational system. So what we want to see is we want to see more parents join our parent faculty clubs. We want to see more parents attend our open house events and our back to school nights. We want more parents engaging with their kids at home on Eureka Math and Footsteps of Brilliance and Accelerated Reader and Benchmark Universe and McGraw-Hill Science Adoption. And we want our students here every day, and we want them on time, and we want them engaged in activities when they're on campus. So the last goal is sometimes the hardest one for schools to be able to wrap their arms around. But if we can figure out and improve the active engagement of parents and students in our educational program, then I think it's going to be a pretty amazing school year next year. So just to summarize, 4 goals in the district. Number 1, student achievement. Number 2, social emotional supports and learning for all students. Number 3, equity for all students. And number 4, the active engagement of parents and students in our process. So that's my opening, my speech, my basically ground setting for all of us. Is this is where we're starting from. So let me explain to you the next part of the process. So now that we know these are the 4 goals we want to focus on in our district, it's time for us to be able to get ideas from families, from employees, and from community members on what we should be doing to accomplish these 4 goals. So one of the best ways to do that is to meet with people and to do surveys with people. And I want to share with you the results of some of those surveys. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to present my screen for all of you. You'll be able to see right here. It'll take me just a second. Let me go ahead and get to it. Share it there. There we go. I'm going to go up to the top. There we go. There we go. Just zoom in just a little bit. All right, so here we go. This is a parent survey. We had 600 responses to this survey, a little bit over 600 actually. And as you can tell, the vast majority of the people responding to this survey were parents. We asked, how many of you have kids going to these different schools? So we have some K-6 schools this year: Sunny Slope, Sarah Vista, Lad Lane, R.O. Hardin. We have some K-8 schools, that's Calaveras and HDLA. And then we've got a couple of middle schools, and that's Rancho San Justo and Mays Middle School. So you see kind of how it breaks down, the combination, how many parents. You can see it adds up to more than 100%, and that's because we allowed them to choose more than one option. So some families have kids at an elementary school and also at a middle school, and that's pretty common for us. All right. First big question we asked is, should the district invest more funding in instructional assistant staff positions? There's pretty big amount of support there, 79%. That's a solid number. We asked whether or not the district should invest more funding in arts education, and this one really took note right away. 88% of parents who responded to this survey said yes, we should be spending more money on arts education, and that was an eye-opener. So it's starting to make us think more about and ask more questions about how we could do a better job of implementing arts education for our students. We asked the question about reading support programs. As you know, a couple of years ago, we adopted what's called the Orton-Gillingham approach to teach reading intervention, and we've adopted the Footsteps of Brilliance program. I do want to show you something. This is a sweatshirt that our teachers who have had kids that have read 2 million words in their class will be getting this week. It says, keep calm and read 2 million words. And we're using the Footsteps of Brilliance program to track that number of words read. So we've got 81% of parents strongly supporting, saying they agree with investments in reading support. That's good. That's really good news. We asked the question about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, specifically things like coding, engineering, and robotics. These are in-class supports, and 83% said yes. We asked the same question about science labs as an example of hands-on learning. 94% said yes. That is the highest response for any question we asked. So what it's really making us start to think about is, why are our parents asking so strongly for hands-on learning? Well, we have to think about what this year has been like in terms of kids being on a computer doing this all day with the headsets and watching a screen, and parents feeling like this upcoming year we've got to get these kids engaged and touching things and working with each other and communicating and collaborating. So we're really taking this to heart in a big way. That's a super strong piece of evidence for us there. So we asked the question, should we be hiring more counselors? And 73% of folks said yes. We asked about summer school programs. 2/3 said yes, we should be investing in summer school programs. That's a very strong response. It's up from prior years. We asked the question about changing discipline policies that teach and reteach positive behaviors. So one way to deal with discipline is to basically observe a child behave badly and then discipline the child for behaving badly in a way where, if you break a classroom rule, you take the pencil shavings and you pour it on the ground. Then the teacher says, you're sitting out for recess. The pencil shavings are still on the ground. So that isn't going to work for me as the teacher. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to explain to the student, I'm going to teach the student why what they did was wrong. And I'm going to ask the student to rectify it. I'm going to bring the trash can over and let's pick this stuff up and let's make good on the bad behavior we engaged in, so that kids see that their behavior is not something that just gets them punished, but it's something they learn from and something they don't repeat. What we really want to try to avoid is having kids repeat behaviors. And that happens when the punishments don't match the behavior and when schools don't invest enough time in teaching and reteaching behaviors. So that's a pretty good response there. 79% of families requesting that. We asked the question about more yard duty positions, and this was one of our lower scored questions. So that one was also kind of an eye-opener. 71% stated that they supported it. That's still pretty strong, but it did come in a little bit lower than we thought, which just goes to show you why you need to conduct these surveys. We did ask the question about considering extending recess. And the idea here is just to basically give kids more time outside, give kids more time playing and running, get them under the sunshine. We happen to live in a gorgeous place where the weather is beautiful, 10 months of the year. And so we basically are looking at and thinking about extending recess time so that our students can just develop that social emotional connection to their peers again, and recess time can be one of those key times to do that. 63%, we're somewhat pleased with that result. We thought it would be closer to 70 or 80%. So we're going to think a little bit more about that one, and really talk more about why that number came in the way that it did and what it means for us in terms of extending recess times next year. We asked the question about whether the school district should consider policies that reduce out-of-school suspensions. And I do want to give the community an update on this. So we basically have 2 schools where the suspension rate is really, really high, and that is Mays and that is Rancho San Justo. And then we have 8 schools where the suspension rate is very, very low. In some cases, there are years where only 1 or 0 students is suspended from schools. So I want to make it clear to parents that every school, Lad Lane, Sarah Vista, R.O. Hardin, Sunny Slope, every single school has kids who have behavior that breaks the rules. Every single school. At all of our K-6 schools, suspension is very rarely used for a variety of reasons. One is the kids aren't switching classes. They're with one teacher all day. So behaviors are acknowledged and rectified sooner, and they're dealt with immediately. The schools are also somewhat smaller as compared to the size of a school like Rancho San Justo, which a couple of years ago was in the 900 range. And so that changes it. And the other reason is that the schools have a balance of grade levels. So, you know, if I give you 25 TK kids, the biggest behavior you're going to see is, you know, not wanting to share a toy, or, you know, 4-year-old and 5-year-old behaviors. If you give me a lot of 6th graders, well, you're going to start to have some different, more significant, more intense, bigger kid problems that tend to happen when the kids get older. The middle schools have nothing but 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, which is our 11, 12, and 13-year-olds. And that's a big change. And that requires a lot more mentorship, a lot more support, a lot more counseling. And for the last couple of years, we just haven't had enough staff. And so what we're looking at doing is we're looking at changing our discipline policies in a way that teaches and reteaches behavior and gives kids counseling and mentorship. And we stop suspending them all of the time for infractions that could be dealt with in a different way. Now, I think where some of this might come from is parents might wonder, well, what if they commit a really bad offense? Like, what if they get into a fight, or what if they bring drugs to campus, or what if there's a really significant bullying issue? Well, in those cases, we are going to suspend, and we're absolutely going to do the right decision, the right step for every behavior. But I do want to tell you, there are many, many instances where there isn't a severe behavior like that, and it results in a suspension. And for the last few years, that only happens at Rancho San Justo and Mays Middle School. It does not happen at our other schools. So we're really looking carefully at how we discipline kids and how we train staff and how we train students to set up the right kind of atmosphere on campus. And it all relates to the discipline policies and the culture on the campus. We asked the question, should the school district give middle school students more mentorship and coaching? And look at that response. 83% said yes. So that's really great. I love to see that because it tells me that parents feel like these teenagers just need somebody to give them advice, somebody who can talk to them. So we're really looking at that answer there and thinking, okay, we might have a path here, might have a way to reach these kids so that they feel supported, so that they feel cared for. Yeah. Let me take you here to before or after school supervision. 64% want the school district to offer before school supervision. That's an excellent response. 72% are asking the school district to offer more after school supervision. That's a really good response. We found this really interesting. So when we changed it from before school supervision to before and after school arts education, the result went up. So what it tells me is parents would like for their children to come to school before or after, especially if we can do arts or sports with them after school. So let's take a look at the next question. 85%, it's a very high number. The district should provide before or after school athletics. And I gave examples of 5th through 8th grade soccer, basketball, football, wrestling, and cross country. 92% of families. So that is a response that I said, wow, we've got to pay attention to that. We've really got to think about why parents are asking for sports. There's a teamwork aspect, there's an effort aspect, there's a health aspect, there's a commitment aspect. I mean, there's just a lot of ways to figure out and to think about how this response is telling us as a school district, parents really want these things for their kids. So that was a really, really great response. And that takes us to training for capturing kids' hearts. We offer the Capturing Kids' Hearts training to staff. We were just notified that 6 of our schools were identified as national showcase schools for capturing kids' hearts. So I want to give a big round of applause to our campuses that earned that award. We have some pretty amazing school principals. We have awesome teachers and incredible staff members who all contribute to the culture on our elementary campuses. And basically what we were thinking was, can we train the parents in capturing kids' hearts? And we got some support. It wasn't quite as strong as we were hoping for, but you won't know until you ask. So the next question is, should we offer a peer mentoring program? And again, we thought we might get a much higher response there. It didn't go quite as well as we thought on that question, but it's okay because we're going to think a little bit more about this and send a follow-up survey to just help us understand a little bit better why some of the responses came back not sure and disagree. So we'll be sending that out in the weeks ahead. Yeah, and so that will take us to middle school yard duty staff in restorative practices. So let me explain to the parents what we mean by restorative practices. So a very common incident that would take place between 2 middle schoolers is you have these 2 kids in middle school, they're out on campus, they're hanging out with their friends. One student gets into a verbal conflict with another student, says something really hurtful, really harsh to this student. So now this student is very, very upset by what happened and tells the teacher, who tells the principal, who brings the kid in. In a punitive process where you just want to punish kids, you send the kid home for a day because they did something that really was offensive and cruel and hurt the feelings of another student. So you bring the kid into the office, you call the parents and you say, hey, your child said such and such to another student and they're going home for the day and they'll be back at school, not tomorrow, but the day after. So they're being suspended from school. So that student might, I don't know, they might think somehow they got a day off from school. Or they might be upset that they're missing school and blame the student that told on them. Those are 2 very common reactions to being suspended from school, like wanting to blame the other child or feeling like, okay, I get to stay home for a day. The problem with that is it doesn't change the behavior. The problem is that the child who said something really cruel and harsh to the other child needs to be made to understand why their words were so hurtful and what the impact of their behavior is. So what restorative practices is all about is it's about teaching children how to repair the harm that they caused, how to fix what they did wrong. Their treatment of other people impacts other people. So it has to result in the child learning why their behavior is causing a problem for other people and acknowledging that the other people's feelings and lives are affected by their conduct so that they can change in the future. So we were pretty excited to see 64% of parents want our yard duty to be trained in restorative practices. We think that's a really good response. Um, we hope that as we move forward in the weeks ahead, we can get a little bit more feedback from our staff about it. But the initial reaction is really good in that we would have restorative practices supported by parents, especially among our yard duty staff. So that takes us to the next question, which is policies that limit out-of-school suspensions. Again, we got that response indicating not very much support compared to other policies that we put out there. So we're going to think a little bit more about the suspensions policy because we certainly want parents to be assured that our schools will be safe, but we're going to do some things that are a little bit different next year so that kids are getting more mentorship and more counseling and more intervention and less out of school suspensions, which we believe when a child is suspended out of school and it's not for an offense that deserved it, it makes problems worse. The kids don't see it as a valid punishment because, well, I got suspended for something that didn't really connect to what the behavior was. So yeah, I'll come back to school and maybe a week later I'll do something else, or I don't really understand why I'm being suspended. And so I don't think it's fair. And teenagers are very, very attuned to being treated fairly. And we want our discipline policies to really make sense. When there's a suspension, there's a reason for it, and there's an outcome and a value for it. So the 51% did come in lower than we thought, but that's okay because we're going to work with our teachers and our parents to work through how to make that policy change make the most sense for next year. Because ultimately what we want is we want these behaviors to come way down. And again, we're really talking about two schools, Rancho San Justo Middle School, Mays Middle School, which we believe are going to have really different campus cultures next year because of the training, because of the mentoring, because of the counseling, because of the wonderful administration and staff that we have at those schools. The other big change in the last 2 years, we've opened up 6th and now 7th grade at Sunny Slope, Lad Lane, Sarah Vista, and that is bringing down the size of Mays and Rancho San Justo. So where in the past we had 900 kids at Rancho, next year we're projecting less than 700 kids, and that's a big shift. At Mays, we're projecting 550 kids at Mays next year. So that's another big drop, which we believe is going to improve the campus culture because the adults will be able to make stronger and more connections with the students that are there at their school. So, whoa, I talked a lot there. This is great data here. The feedback here is that parents really support employees being trained in what's called trauma-informed practices. That's important because it really pertains to explaining to parents, showing parents how kids come to school and they're hurting on the inside. They're dealing with things at home, and showing our adults how to be aware of that and how to support a child who's going through something tough at home. Because we believe that will just elevate the number of kids who are having their needs met. So when a child comes in and is really, really withdrawn, really quiet, and I say good morning to a child in a situation like that, and they don't respond back to me, I don't jump on the kid and say, hey, why aren't you saying good morning to me? I think to myself, I'm gonna kind of maybe come back a little bit more quietly and check in with them and say, hey, how you doing? You okay? I'm gonna keep an eye on what might be going on with that child who's super quiet and really withdrawn to figure out if there's anything going on in the home that I need to be aware of. And that kind of trauma-informed training is going to be provided, assuming we move forward with it in this LCAP, to our staff, which we feel good about. Then we asked the question about positive behavior intervention support. That is a program that we're going to be moving forward at our 2 middle schools. It's also known as PBIS, or Positive Behavior Intervention Support. Our plan is to train both of the campuses, all of the employees, administration, office staff, instructional assistants, yard duty, and teachers in the use of positive behavior intervention supports, and 85% is a wonderful response. So we did ask the question about holding more parent workshops, and the result came back here on really strong, 50% in favor, and wanting us as a district to improve when we're helping parents who are requesting assistance with academics, 80%. That's very good data. And then our last is helping parents with assistance pertaining to their children having social and emotional needs. So I want to talk about those two together. The district was able to hire a position called parent liaison with the focus of putting together a program called the Parent Ambassador Program. So we're currently working with our Director of Student Services, Kip Ward, and his staff to build a brand new program in our district called Parent Ambassadors. And the way the program would work is we have an employee who works here at the district office who is responsible for this program. And this employee will find parents at each of our schools that want to sign up to be a parent ambassador. And these are parents that regularly go to school meetings, know who the principal is, know how to email all their teachers, have kids attending the school that they're going to serve as an ambassador for, have a positive attitude towards other parents, are good listeners, like working with others. And we would basically give the parents a stipend so that every single month those parents receive a special check to pay them basically for serving in this role as parent ambassadors. So the impact of that is you have a $400 a month check coming to you as a parent, and when the school has a need for somebody to help another parent figure out how to get in contact with their teacher, understand the school's policies about discipline, do an orientation when there's a new parent, and they can meet with this parent ambassador. It's kind of like a friend who really knows the school, like the first parent you can reach out to ask that question when you're not sure about how to get your needs met. And we're patterning this program after one that already exists in Moreno Valley, which is in Southern California. It's the Parent Ambassadors Program. So we've got a lot of really good ideas on how to put that program together. And we believe it's going to help us with this question of how can the district do a better job of helping parents when they need assistance with academics. So when your child's not doing well in one or more class or with their teacher, how can you do something about it? That is connected to being able to call somebody like a parent ambassador who can give you advice, who can tell you how to get your needs met and tell you how to get that meeting with the teacher or that meeting with the principal, and give you the confidence to be able to go into the office and to be able to ask for assistance. So I wanted to share that with you all. I wanted to give you some of that background. I'm going to stop sharing here for a couple of minutes. So we'll go back to seeing me on the screen because I want to help parents who are watching understand what it means to basically what it means to participate in these surveys, to give your input in these surveys. You know, our district it's not a small district. You know, we have 6,000 students in this district and 10 schools. And when that's the case, we have a big responsibility to listen to everyone. So when we put out a survey and 600 families respond at 10 schools in 9 different grade levels, it's really great to see, because think about it, if you have a child that's in kindergarten, some of the questions on that survey don't really pertain to you because you have a 5-year-old. But if you have a child who's 13, some of those questions, the reading one, that doesn't pertain to you either because your child's 13 years old. But it's about taking all the parent ideas and showing what there is in terms of the support for those ideas. And the ones that jumped out at us were the arts education, the before and after school athletics education. Those opportunities jumped out at us to be able to give better and more hands-on learning in class, better and more technology and engineering and math in class. And then, of course, the support for our training our staff in trauma-informed, as well as positive behavior intervention supports. So, as I explained earlier, big survey goes out to parents, 600 come back. This was the second survey, by the way. About a month ago, I gave an earlier survey. Got 600 or 700 back on that. So we've got 2 surveys in with parents. Well, now I'm starting to meet with teachers. I'm starting to meet with classified staff. So currently we met with 3 schools teachers. R.O. Hardin, HDLA Goblin Hills, actually 4, and then Mays Middle School. So because I don't have all the teachers met with yet, all the schools, I'm going to give you more of a verbal summary on what we found in working with our teachers. So far, after meeting with those 4 schools, what we found is that there's some support for being able to offer more assistance and more in-class interventions for reading and in-class interventions for instructional aid support. There has been some interest and some support for extending the school day by having tutoring after school and academic support after school. There has been support for smaller class sizes. There has been support for being able to do more science-based education, what they would describe as more engaging and fun education, and getting away from only doing written work. So that's what we've gotten so far from our teachers, and we'll have much more at our next LCAP community input session, because we'll have all 10 schools and we'll have the data from all 10 of those schools. But I do want to present one more document to you, and that is the feedback from our classified staff. And I think you're really, really going to like this. So I'm going to present my screen one more time. And here we go. Let's see here. There we go. Boom. Share. All right. So what you're looking at here is feedback from 3 different meetings. So I held a 1 p.m., a 2:30, and a 4 p.m. meeting last week on Friday with our classified staff. And our classified staff includes district secretaries. It includes school health clerks. It includes school librarian, media specialists. It includes office managers, school secretaries, paraprofessionals, instructional assistants, custodians, gardeners, district maintenance staff. So it's a pretty big student nutrition work, a pretty big group of folks. And we met with about 50 on Friday. And here's what they had. Here's what they had. I want to enlarge this for you all so you can see it just a little bit better. I thought this was great, just seeing their support for before and after school tutoring. There was some support for more TK and pre-K programs. This was great. They had some support for 6th grade push-in services. And what that means is that when a child has an IEP, you have them in their English class, in their math, in their science, and their history. You don't take them out of those classes. You keep them in with the rest of their peers, and you send staff to go help them in their class. Then we had the question come up of, can we have high school kids come and help our students? This was great. There was an idea to have a campaign geared towards parents encouraging academic involvement. We had an idea about reading support to allow students to improve their reading and listening. And then, as I mentioned before, tutoring services before and after school. On the social emotional learning, what we talked about with the classified staff, and they were amazing at giving feedback on SEL, as we call it. They were thinking about training for employees. They were thinking about more counselors, more school psychologists. They wanted to really see us put athletic programs back out there. They really wanted to support arts programs. They wanted what they called trauma-informed and resilience informed training for staff. So one thing is to be able to identify when a child is going through a really difficult time. Another is to be able to coach them and assist them on making it through the difficult time in their life. And that's what we call resilience informed training. There was also an idea of therapy services, as well as basically kind of teaching kids how to come back to campus. How do I get back on campus? How do I get back into the groove of being a student on campus? Because they spent the last year going to school on a computer screen. The next up was equity for all students. And the first thing that came up was we need to bring these kids to school. Some of these kids can't get to school because they live too far. The second was that some parents have told staff that they feel discriminated against at certain schools. This one really kind of got my attention because I want to address that right away. I don't want any parent to feel discriminated against. I think when that happens, we need to know about it right away so we can do something about it. And I really wanted to distinguish between a parent feeling like the customer service wasn't good versus the parent feeling that discrimination exists. So we're thinking about this one a little bit more so we can come up with a different survey to help us understand that feedback a little bit better. When it came to active parent engagement, the things that came up right away were supporting our parent clubs, training our parents on reading, having strong communication with parents and making parents feel like they are a part of the school, and then helping parents with online training like Google Docs. So what I think you can see from our classified training, our classified input sessions, is that these folks are really looking at the whole child. They're telling you our academics can improve, our tutoring can improve, we can take care of these kids before school, arts and athletics should be reintroduced. We want these families to be encouraged. We want to train families. So I really like the way they came through with a real well-rounded input for us to think about. And what it really brings me to is it brings me to the point in our meeting where we talk about what's next. We have the beginnings of really, really good feedback. I want you all to know I have a meeting with a Superintendent's Parent Advisory Council this Wednesday. I'll be meeting with representatives from each school and asking them to give me feedback on these same items. As you know, every parent received an email with the link to the survey that I just went over. As you know, I met with all classified staff. I plan to do so again in 3 weeks. We've met with all teachers at 4 schools, and we'll do so at the other 6 schools in the next 2 weeks. And what it will result in is next April 27th, which is next Tuesday, I will present to the school board a summary of all of the feedback data with my recommendations on what the next steps are for the district. And then from May 1st until May 15th, myself and a team of administrators here at the district office will put together the major pieces of the district's local control accountability plan, or LCAP. So you won't see us leave this office very often or come out. I might put some paper on the wall so we can really dig in and get the writing done. I want to warn you, the LCAP will end up being like 125 pages. So I doubt very many people will go through and read all 125 pages because it is pretty boring stuff. But what I can tell you is that we will produce a clear and accurate and effective summary for parents, and we will make the full document available as early as possible to everybody. And we expect that we will present that first draft of the full document at the end of May at the board's regular meeting. So what will happen is I'll make a big presentation to the board about it. The board will give me their ideas. People will call in and ask questions about the plan. And then over the next 30 days, I'll wait to get emails and phone calls from members of the community so that if there are ideas on how to change the plan or improve the plan, we can consider them and potentially make those changes before it comes back to the board on June 23rd, which is the date of our regular board meeting in June, which is where the school board would consider approving the district's LCAP. So I really want parents to understand that the essence of this is about addressing the needs that our children have by asking parents, asking teachers, asking classified, asking administration, building a plan, bringing it back and letting all those groups give feedback again, and then finalizing a plan for the school board to think about and vote on June 23rd, 2020. 2021, look at that, I'm still saying 2020. So I wanted to thank everybody for being in this meeting with me. I am going to send this via email to our families district-wide so that those that are interested can watch and observe and participate. I do want to thank you all for being in this meeting. Any time that you invest in your children's education is going to come back to you tenfold. So I want to encourage you to always sign up for these meetings, always watch these meetings on YouTube Live. Engage with your child's teachers. I want to thank every single parent for everything that you've done this year. You are all amazing. I am so thankful to you all. And I want to wish everybody a wonderful evening. Thank you to my tech staff. Thank you to Marta for helping me with this meeting in Spanish. And we will be in touch soon. Thank you, everybody. So we'll go ahead and log off here.